Hello and welcome to this James the Bike Guy, where today we're getting a chance to take a look at the 2024 Santa Cruz Tallboy C. This is the C-level carbon version and the S build, which is their most popular way this bike comes spec'd and sold here in the US. So in this video, we're going to go into the features and designs of the Tallboy C, the V5 version in front of us. Then we'll find out exactly what it weighs. So if this kind of thing is interesting to you, stick around and let's check this bike out together. Talking Santa Cruz Tallboy. This is the V5 version and what Santa Cruz proclaims as the downhiller's XC bike. And there's good reason for that, because on the V5 version, which came out last year, and I've got a full in-depth video of all the changes to that bike that I'll link just above, they dialed in some aggressive geometry to this bike, but still keeping the handling snappy and fast while also being very efficient under pedaling. And in fact, if we jump back in history, the Santa Cruz Tallboy was Santa Cruz's answer to the trail bike. And it offers a spot somewhere between their Blur, which is their XC race bike, a bike really designed for those epic long distance rides or crushing XC efforts. But that bike is not all that forgiving, and it's also a bit harder on your body for just riding around and improving your skills. But then as they jumped up to their high tower, which is the do-it-all mountain bike, it may have had more suspension travel than somebody that wanted to extend their rides from what you'd use a Blur for. And that's where this Tallboy really fits in nicely. And in the 5th generation, this is a mature bike that knows what it wants as far as being a great all-around trail bike for super long days in the saddle, but also geometry that's going to allow it to come alive and get shreddy in some gnarly sections. Now, this new geometry features a head tube angle of 65.7 degrees in high position and 65.5 in low, with a seat tube angle in a super steep 76.7 degrees in high and 76.4 degrees in low. And that's all being done because the rear end, which operates a VPP suspension design, has a high and low position that you can set up on its lower link. Now, something really neat about the Santa Cruz VPP suspension is that it uses 2 counter-rotating links. So as this link rotates forward, the other one's rotating the other direction down, and that allows for the pivot point to essentially be floating almost in an S-curve. So with this Santa Cruz Tallboy, they're able to engineer in a more supportive suspension curve in the beginning bits of travel, and then a more progressive suspension curve further in, so that off the top, you're going to have really quick responsivity to the suspension. But then when you're deep into the travel and you're needing the bike to kind of pull you out of what it allowed you to get into, the suspension is going to be there to handle it. And speaking of suspension, the bike features 130 millimeters of front suspension via this RockShox 34 Performance on the S builds. And then out back, that VPP suspension is 120 millimeters of total travel through the Fox Float Evolve rear shock. Now, that suspension is really designed around that perfect balance we talked about earlier of efficiency while also having the capability to take the slack head tube and steep seat tube and allow you to climb to the top of a really fun descent, but still feel like you can rip down that same descent. And Santa Cruz makes the Tallboy in 2 versions, the C, which is in front of us here, which is the less expensive flavor of carbon, and then they have a CC, which is the exact same geometry and design as this frame, but with a different carbon layup to allow it to be lighter and a little more efficient. But what's really cool is Santa Cruz will even tell you that you're not going to feel a difference in ride quality between a C and a CC. It's rather weight and finishing details. Now, speaking of finishing details, one of my favorites is Santa Cruz's glove box. Now, this flips off, of course, the cardboard POP that's on it can come off, but this houses the opening to the Santa Cruz glove box. And inside of the glove box is some internal frame storage. You've got a couple of bags that come out. You first have this one, it's a neoprene style bag, and then you have a second that's going to pull up from the bottom. You don't have to use those, you can use anything else you want, but we can really see the quality of the carbon inside. Now, that's especially neat because in a lot of cases, if you ever were to look inside of a carbon frame, you'll often notice that it's not perfectly smooth and not as well finished as what you see on the outside. Santa Cruz uses an expanded polystyrene carbon process, which means that there's a negative inside of the frame of expanded polystyrene that then allows them to mold everything together, get this really smooth finish to the inside of the frame, and they can even put in these ports for the internal cable routing. And if you see these two ridges on the drive side and then the one ridge on the non-drive, what you're looking at is actually the ports for the cabling. So as the cabling comes down through the frame, it's in a captured tube, which means this is super easy to run cable routing. You know, no longer do you have that woe of having internal cable routing. You get all the benefits of having it, but none of the drawbacks. It's a pretty cool system. And so to put everything back in, you can just slide the bags into place. Then the glove box will slide back on, this latch, and it's on there nice and securely, mostly water resistant. But if you go fording, it's probably worth draining your bike just like you would in any other situation. Now, with this being the S level build, means it's one up from the base build, the R build, but quite a ways down in the overall lineup of Santa Cruz. But that means you're going to get good quality parts to get rolling and plenty of places to upgrade if you wanted to. Of course, Santa Cruz is partnering with BergTech on all of their bikes now, so you've got a full BergTech cockpit, grips, the whole bit feels super nice on this bike. I really especially love the grips, and then some SRAM G2 brakes, as well as a RockShox 1x dropper post. Dropper posts are size specific. This bike being a extra large means that it's got a super long dropper post, and then a drivetrain that runs on this bike is a 1x12 SRAM GX Lunar drivetrain. So Lunar rear derailleur fits up to a 52 tooth rear cassette. However, you'll see that it's coming with the 10 to 50 tooth 500% range rear cassette. So while you can go up to 52 tooth if you want to, it's coming with the 50 tooth rear cassette, which I think is fitting for this style of bike. Of course, up front is a SRAM GX crankset going through a threaded bottom bracket, and that's all driving into these DT Swiss 370 hubs with the LN ratchet upgrade and some race face AR30 offset rims. Now, something a lot of people are probably not aware of is that Santa Cruz laces their wheels and hubs all together in their assembly plant that's in California. So this wheel set is put together there, laced up on some machines, and custom built for exactly this application. It's not too many bikes that you're getting from a major manufacturer like Santa Cruz that's coming with custom wheels to the builds. Well, anyways, that's a look at all the features and designs of this here Santa Cruz Tallboy V5, and we're going to find out exactly what it weighs. The actual weight of the Santa Cruz Tallboy V5 CS build is going to come in and weigh 32.06 pounds.